On that, I'll ask for confirmation of quorum, please.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to call to order? Can I have adoption of public agenda, please?
I'll move that we adopt the agenda for December 4th, 2020, regular meeting of the board as presented.
Thank you. And a second by Director Lee. Any additions? Nothing to see? Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Just let you know, directors, I've got no staff in here because of COVID to help me with the speakers list. So hopefully I can keep a track of who wants to speak next. We have no petitions or delegations. Can I have adoption of the minutes for November the 18th?
Move adoption.
Second.
Any errors, omissions? Seeing none, anyone opposed? Seeing none, call carried. Under F, business arising from the minute. Is there any business arising? Seeing none. On the public considerations, there's none. Notes of motion. I have nothing. Under chair's report, I think most directors, I've still got 3 or 4 to talk to about appointments for 2021, and I'll try and get them done in the next week or so. And those will be on our January meeting. As far as motions, with COVID rules and the way we're doing business today, if you can't have your motions introduced before the meeting, please try and have them written out that we can do it in a timely manner, just to make sure we keep our meeting moving forward. The only other item I've got as of today, December the 2nd, 2020, Strathcona Connected Coast Network assigned the construction contract with Bayline Network. As of today, December 2nd, 2020, and just let the board know, City West has also signed a contract with Bayline. That's all I've got for chair's report. So if I can have a order. Moved by Director Lee, second by Director Evans. Any discussion? Seeing none, thank you. No consent calendar, no committee chairs report, no external reports. Under staff reports, the first item, BC Authority Board. Can I motion to receive the report? Director Wally. Second by Director Lee and CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tom will speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the report in front of the board today really is to outline the responses that the regional district received to an invitation for members of the public to self-nominate if they're interested in this position. And 2 responses, they are attached to the board report, and the recommendation is that the board consider interviewing those candidates that are of interest to the board at the January 13th meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yep.
Dr. Abram.
Thank you. The January 13th regional board meeting, is there a Strathcona Gardens meeting scheduled right after at 3 o'clock?
CEO.
I'm not looking at a schedule. Tom might.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Strathcona Gardens Commission is scheduled for 3 o'clock that day. The board has other suggestions as to when you would like to interview these candidates. All of them.
Tom, you're really broken up, Tom.
Yeah.
Could I just, what I was going to
Yes.
say is that you have, pardon me?
Director Abram, there is a meeting of the Strathcona Gardens after, yes.
Yes, okay, I got that, and that I just wanted to say that if that is the case, scheduling 2 interviews, which, could go on for 15, 20 minutes, half hour, who knows, each, that may largely cut into the board agenda for that day. You may want to reconsider either that date or doing something.
Seal,
Mr. Chair, if I may, I believe, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, the date to submit names is very shortly after that, maybe the 14th or the 15th. So the board has a couple options. One, that's the first meeting after this meeting, or they could simply appoint one of the two right now if they chose. But I do believe the nominations need to be in very shortly after the 13th.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. January 15th is the deadline for the board to submit a nomination
okay,
if it wishes to the BC Ferry Authority Board.
okay, thank you.
Okay, if I may have a subsequent.
Okay, thank you. Once we finish receipt, Director Cornfield.
No, I meant a subsequent question.
After
you.
receipt, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm not looking at, when we have candidates, they filled out their application. I can't see an interview taking any great length of time. We've only got 2 people to interview. I don't believe our purpose is to delve that deep. We've got all of the information, and if somebody has to do some digging, they can do it between now and the January board meeting. So I don't see that as being a long process, or I would hope it would not be a long process to have a quick interview if required, and yeah, and then take the vote.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on receipt?
Mr. Chair, don't we have 3 candidates? Isn't there Mark Tremblay, James Wilson, and Patricia Cassidy?
Seal,
I'll defer to Tom. I think there's only 2.
Mr. Chairman, we've only received 2. If there's a third, we're unaware of it.
Oh, I thought I saw the name Patricia Cassidy amongst them.
no, doesn't sound like a director.
No,
Okay, anything else on receipt? See
Yes,
none
Mr. Chair.
on receipt, go ahead.
Yeah, just to the conversation. Charlie says he doesn't see that there would be any need to have an extended conversation. Well, the best laid plans, etc. So it could be short, could be long. All I was suggesting was that we somehow accommodate the possibility, and one of those suggestions might be if we could possibly move the Strathcona Gardens Commission meeting to 3:30 as opposed to 3.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on receipt? Seeing none, call question. Anyone opposed? Call it carried. Item B. Motion the candidates for
Move B.
nomination of the board.
move B.
Director Lee, seconder,
Second.
Director Adams. And any discussion, Director Adams?
Thank you. I would like to make the motion to appoint Mark Tremblay as the BC Ferry to the BC Ferry Authority Board.
I would second that.
Okay, so right now we have
Don't we have a motion
on the floor right now.
I'll
Is it
withdraw the
withdrawn?
motion.
You withdraw it, thank you. And the seconder, withdraw?
They can be withdrawn provided there's no objections, and I would object to withdrawing the motion.
You're objecting to withdrawing the motion?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
What is the motion on the floor? Sorry, sir.
The motion's on the floor is what's on your agenda, Director Abram. Candidates for nomination of the board, BC Ferry
Okay,
Authority,
fine.
to be scheduled
Okay,
meeting on
and then-
January 13th.
So the one that Andy and myself made is second to that.
Correct. We already have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I think that I'm inclined to say we should give everyone a fair chance to be interviewed. And even though Mark Tremblay's resume is very impressive in the transportation end, I think we owe it to the other candidate to listen to what he has to offer. He is local Cape Mudge resident, and I think it's only fair to, if someone's made the effort to apply, to hear them. And it's also good to interview because, for things that look great on paper, when you meet the person, maybe that's not the right personality or whatever for the job. So you never know. So it's good to interview. I don't think it'll hurt us to interview.
Thank you. Director Adams.
I'll pass.
Thank you. Director Abram, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't really feel the need that we have to interview when we have the resumes before us. There will be a subsequent motion after this is made. We can't make it yet, so have to move on. But so I can't speak to it yet. I'll just say I'm opposed to this motion.
Okay,
I
thank
will be
you.
opposing this motion.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question on the motion. Anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
Abram,
Adams.
Abram,
Evans opposed.
Adams, Evans,
Moglove,
Abram.
Counselor, our Director opposed.
Director Kerr opposed.
That's
did
five.
you get mine?
Yeah.
Did
yes,
you get mine, Brad?
yeah, I got 5. Okay, I call that carried. Thank you. On to item 2, liability insurance coverage, Quadra Island Rec Center, motion received,
Move receipt.
seconder,
Second,
thank you, Director Wally, Director Moglove. Joe,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll let Tom speak to this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The report here is basically to bring the board up to date regarding the matter of liability insurance coverage for the Quadra Island Rec Society. There are some constraints in terms of what the regional district can provide through its MIA BC coverage. We're suggesting that we need to explore that in more detail and involve the Recreation Society that has requested room under our umbrella, if you will. And so this is simply a motion to authorize staff to go through that process and see what can be done.
thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Director Abram,
Yes, thank you. I think the directors need to know that at one point, like, first of all, the Quadra Island Rec Society is a contractor to the regional district to run a regional district completely owned facility. And they have been in that position ever since we took ownership from the province of that land and the everything that goes with it, the building, et cetera. We contract with them, we pay them every year through requisition and otherwise. And at one point for a lot of years, they were under MIA coverage. MIA at some point in the recent past decided to stop their coverage, as I understand it, of at least certain portions, if not all, of the coverage for societies that were operating for regional district, operating facilities for regional districts. So what they're asking for is to be put back on that list of coverage. The coverage is very expensive, and through MIA, it's next to nothing. And If it's not done through MIA, then it has to be done through requisition to the taxpayers of Quadra Island. So I would appreciate it if we would vigorously pursue the possibility of designating the society as an associate member.
Great, thank you. Director Anderson.
Just simply to say that this seems like such a routine piece of staff business. I wouldn't even anticipate this would be before us, just exploring options. Thanks.
Joe. Director Adams.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, the possibility of designating Quadra Island Recreation Society as an associate member, moved by Director Davis,
So moved.
second by Director Abram. Is there any other discussion? Director Cornfield?
Thank you. Just a quick question. Would the cost of, I don't know how much staff time it would take to vigorously pursue the possibility of designating an associate member, would the cost be borne by the electoral area?
CEO?
Mr. Chair, I am assuming Mr. Yates would do that, which he is covered under the all pay category, if you will.
Well, wouldn't it come out of the electoral area administration budget?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the cost of the regional district's liability is currently apportioned as much as is reasonably possible because there are certain elements within that insurance coverage that are specific to services. And so where that is the case, as it would be if we were to extend coverage in this case, and identifiable, then that could be allocated to a specific service. Otherwise, I believe it's apportioned under your policy regarding the support service cost allocation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director Colburn, did you have a question? Seeing none. A question on
Sorry
B.
about that. I was sorry about that. I was just I'm just having a hard time hearing with everybody talking. So thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, question on B. Is anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item 3, proposed 93.1 FM radio policy. Motion received. Director Evans. Director Colburn seconds. CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll defer to Tom again.
Mr. Chairman, the board may recall it asked for a policy because the the regional district is now the owner operator of 93.1 FM visitor radio at the Strathcona Gardens. And the purpose of the policy is to suggest certain constraints, if you will, on what we can and cannot use that for, realizing we are within the bounds of CRTC regulation as well. But this policy merely is proposed to provide guidelines for how content and programming will be developed for that particular operation.
Thank you. Any questions? Director Anderson.
Thank you. If we were to take on this radio station, I think the policy is just fine. But my understanding when this came before us last was that in addition to a policy for our consideration, there was also going to be some exploration about whether this is indeed a good thing to take on, the listenership, the range, because I certainly know that when I've encountered visitor radio, you know, in my car driving through communities, it's never a station that I linger on. So is it beneficial for some other anticipated future use in terms of emergency communications? And if so, is this a viable platform that people are actually going to be tuning into? I'm not opposed to taking it on as we have done, but to put a bunch of energy into it, if it's not actually a used platform, would be silly. So I'm just wondering if there's been any exploration into that by staff. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll just remind Director Anderson that we had this before the board and we do already own this station and we have taken on this service.
I do remember that.
If I could,
So-
Mr. Chairman, I could jump in and just explain that part of the rationale, I believe, for the board deciding this was in the public interest was the ability to use it as a method for broadcasting emergency messaging during emergency situations. Even though the range is limited, it does not cover the whole region by any means. It is still serving a fairly large populated area, that being Greater Campbell River, I believe possibly parts of Quagga Island as well. And so that was the rationale, I believe, for the board deciding to go ahead and take this on. And having done that, the board realized there was a need for a policy covering the programming and the content. And so that's really where we're at today.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other discussion on receipt? Seeing none, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing no one, call carried. Item B, the policy CP 029 be approved. Director Colburn, Director Adams. Any further discussion? Question, anyone opposed? Seeing none, item C, move the bylaw be established. Director Colburn. Second by
Lee.
Director Lee. Any other discussion? Seeing none, carried. Item 4, Northwest Vancouver Island Tsunami Mapping Contract Amendment. Motion to receive the report. Director Colburn. Seconder, Director Wally. CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think there's much to add from staff on this.
Okay. Any discussion? Director Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Through to staff, I'm just wondering if the LiDAR data within this report will be available to members such as Village of Tassos?
CO.
So I'll defer to Sean there. Yeah, I think he's on.
Sean will take the deferral. So through the chair to Director Davis. Yes, so as part of the condition of this grant, all the LiDAR will be sent to GOBC and be publicly available for any entity to use as they see fit. And that's what this change order request is about, is this additional $7,000 will allow them to process the metadata in such a way that it meets GOBC's standard to become publicly available.
Thanks for that.
Director Cornfield.
And just a real quick one to through to Sean Koopman. Would we not, as the regional district, get a copy and then that could be posted on our site with our mapping programs as a separate layer?
Through the chair to Director Cornfield, that is a result that the SRD will be receiving through this grant, is the different tsunami inundation maps, kind of live picture that can be uploaded into our UMAP file for the public to see as well.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, moved by Director Colburn. Second. Director Adams. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 5, parcel tax rollover panel appointments. Motion receive report. Director Wally, Director Evans. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tom will speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every year, the board is required to appoint a parcel tax roll review panel. we do anticipate there will be some activity early in 2021. And so at this point, we'd like to, for the board to consider making those appointments so that we have sufficient time to organize around those members for holding the first sitting of the parcel tax roll review panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion, Director Abram.
Yeah, just there's a comment further on in the B or C that it will be held at the regional district corporate office. I assume that that's still that our present situation of being able to do things by teams is still in effect.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on receipt? Seeing none. Call carried. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B.
Move B.
We need to fill in some blanks.
There. I sent the written one in.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, I just seen it now. So Director Lee,
Just put them all as blanks.
Director Lee moves that Director Wally, Lee and Abram and Anderson be appointed. There's only three.
That's too many.
Just comment, I've never been appointed in the past because there's no parcel tax on Cortez Island. So
Okay.
just the other three is appropriate.
So, Mr. Chairman, just so the board is clear, the 3 is the minimum.
Okay.
The board could, if it wishes, it could appoint more than that, just so you know.
Question,
sorry.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go
This is
ahead.
Director Lee. I put Director Anderson's name on the list because does she not have parcel taxes related to the community halls now?
Seal.
Mr. Chairman, there are no parcel taxes currently being collected
Okay.
on this island.
Okay, then I'll just take Director Anderson's name off. I thought she might need to be there for the community halls.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll take Director Lee, Abram, and Wally as the 3 directors. Second by Director Kerr. And we have Director Cornfield, point of order. Never mind, he says. Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item C, move the first sitting of the parcel tax rollover for February 10th.
Move the recommendation.
Director Evans and Director Wally. Kill. No other discussion, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, call carried. Item 6, Area D Water Meter Station Improvement Project.
Move receipt.
Director Lee, second by Director Evans, CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wolfgang will speak to this for us.
Through the CEO, good afternoon, everyone. Engineering Services completed successfully the tendering of 2 water meter stations for Area D. We have a very high interest by different contractors. We received 9 tenders and prices ranges between $368,000 and $483,000. After a detailed review conducted by the prime consultant and SRD, we are putting a recommendation to proceed with the lowest bid, which is a bid that came from a contractor called Ridgeline Mechanical. The project is being scheduled to start January, and we anticipate that it won't take more than 3 months to complete it. So that is the update that I have to the tendering process for these 2 water stations.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
I just have a comment, Mr. Chair. I'm so grateful to have Wolfgang working on this project. He's been really successful in installing all the equipment up at Strathcona Gardens and, you know, very competent and on schedule and, you know, responsive. So I'm really glad that Wolfgang is working on this. And after it's received, I'd like to move recommendation B.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else in receipt? Seeing none, call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B,
Move B.
Director Lee moves B. Second by,
Second.
second by Director Cornfield. Any further discussion?
I have just one more question, Mr. Chair.
Director Lee?
Director Lee, and that is through the chair to the CAO. So the backflow valves, are they going to be done pretty quickly afterwards, after these?
It's all part of the project.
It's part of it, because I didn't
Yeah.
see the backflow valves named in that project, but
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a ton of components. That's one of them.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, the call carried. Item 7, Seward Valley curbside collection. Motion received, Director Wally. Second by
Second.
Director Lee and the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add from staff on this.
Thank you. Do I have any questions? Nothing on receipt. Call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, call carried. And item B. Director Wally, Director Colburn second. Thank you. No further discussion. Call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. Item 8, request for economic development grant, Quadra Island. Motion to receive.
I'm just going to interrupt. It's Director Moglove here. I have to declare a conflict of interest on this item as I am on the board of directors of the Campbell River Community Foundation.
Thank you, Director McGlove, and we'll get back to you when we're finished.
So do I leave the meeting and someone will then text me when I can come back? Is that how it works?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get
Okay.
to Edith to text you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Should only be a couple minutes here.
Joe? So motion received
So moved on receipt.
and second by Director Wally. CAO,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add from staff.
any questions? See none, call question. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item B, the board approved economic development grant of $5,000.
Second.
So moved.
Director Abram, Director Cornfield. Any further discussion? I don't see any hands. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll move to bylaws, and I'll just give a second for Edith to contact Director Moglove. Should you told me to go get a glass of water, come back to the room?
Just confirming, I have sent an email.
Ooh, Edith, you got feedback there. I did a just request for her to join here, so she should join in a second.
Yep, back. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks, Jessica. Okay, on the bylaws. First one, bylaw 406, public library facility boring. Moved by Director Lee, second by Director Wally. CEO,
And nothing to add, Mr. Chair?
any questions? Seeing none, no call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, the bylaw 406 being a bylaw to authorize temporary boring.
So
Director
moved.
Evans, and Director Abram. Any discussion? Seeing none, call question. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item C, the rules be suspended by law 406 be give second and third readings. Director Lee,
Move.
second by
Second.
Director Wally. Any questions? Seeing none, call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And item D, the bylaw 406 being public library facility boring authorization bylaw 2020 be reconsidered and finally passed and adopted.
Move adoption.
Thank you, Director Lee and Director Evans. No further discussion. Call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. Bylaw 407, Oyster River Nature Park. Motion receive.
Move receipt.
Director Lee, second. Director Davis, CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add.
Do you have any questions? Seeing none, I'll call question. Anyone opposed?
I'm
Seeing none,
opposed.
carried. Item B, the bylaw 407 be Oyster River Nature Park. The right-of-way agreement authorized 2020 be now reconsidered.
Move.
Director Lee,
B.
Director Colburn, second. Any further discussion? Call question. Anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
Director Cornfield opposed. Call that carried. Thank you. Number 3, bylaw 408, 409, OCP amendment and rezoning electoral area. Moved by Director Wally. Second by Director Abram. CEO.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
Any questions?
I just have one comment. It's Director Lee. I'm a little uncomfortable that we held the public hearing and the only attendee was the applicant. And I don't know whether that was because of difficulty of the public, connecting through the electronic systems and the phone or why, but there were no respondents. So I feel uncomfortable. I feel like we should maybe take another run at it.
Okay. Director Anderson.
Thank you. Yeah, I completely concur. Having not had the benefit of being at the public hearing, awkward given that I have a vote, but in reviewing all the materials, I couldn't agree more. A year and a half ago, when this first came to our attention, there were petitions both for and against signed by many, many, many people. And I just wonder what has happened to all of that interest. I think with the exception of the seniors housing application here on Cortez, the public hearings have been very poorly attended since we've been doing them online. I don't know if the other ones were particularly controversial, but this one certainly was a year and a half ago. So I'm just looking for any insight either from the director from the area or from staff into why we went from huge interest to zero. And if we are to give this, what's it recommended, third reading, subject to ALC final consideration. I would love to know what the reconsideration request was that was made to the ALC, if staff has any more information about who made that and on what grounds. Thank you. So I guess I would like to hear some options from legislative staff around redoing a public hearing or anything. It's quite awkward.
Okay, I'm going to go with Director Wally for a comment first, and I'll go to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the electoral area directors will remember, the last public hearing that the Area A had was for Browns Bay. We had a packed room and we had 0 comments. So this isn't so unusual for Area A. I think this is totally appropriate. People had adequate opportunity to respond if they felt like it. I think that the vast majority of the people are in agreement. It is true that there were some, I won't mention any names, who were opposed, but I trust those things have been resolved.
Thank you. And I'll go to staff.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a comment, but it's more appropriate that I give it under item B rather than item A. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I think Aniko can speak to Director Anderson's questions.
Okay, Annika?
Thank you through the chair. I'll do my best to provide some sort of an answer. You know, up until the public hearing, there's been more than one individual interested in the rezoning application, a neighbor to the FN 99 property. I believe that is the individual that has put in a request for review to ALC to reconsider approval of removing the property from the ALR. I'm not privy to all of the conditions that were provided to the ALC, but I do know that the ALC is considering a review. I am not sure why there were not written responses received prior to the public hearing, or any attendees by either phone or internet other than the applicant themselves. I can tell you that adequate notification was provided as per the Local Government Act, both by mail out and newspaper notices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
Any
just
other
ask a question through the chair to Aniko?
You can ask a question and we'll see if it goes to Annika.
Thanks. I had a message on my answering machine that one adjacent neighbor did not receive the mail notification till the day after the hearing. And that person was very involved. In fact, I think she organized the petition against it when all those signatures came into us. She was not notified in time to be able to attend. And the message was also that there were no signs. Like usually a rezoning requires signage up on the property to let the public know that the property is being considered for a redesignation. And she said there were no signs. So I don't think the public, a lot of them really, clued in that there was something happening on that land, at the time of the public hearing. So maybe that's why we didn't get any input.
Mr. Chair, would this be a point of order? If I could ask, please.
Go ahead.
It's my understanding that we, as directors, are not supposed to receive new information after a public hearing is closed until the board has disposed of it. I think this is the disposition of the public hearing right now. So, are we supposed to be receiving new information at this point, or is it inappropriate?
Seal?
I think it's inappropriate, and I'll let Annika respond.
Cool.
I can advise that the board should not be receiving information, new submissions, shall we say, from the public.
Okay.
From parties once a public hearing has closed. Technical information from staff, etc., that is acceptable. And I think when the board gets on the question beyond receipt, it's appropriate for the board to go on a little further. But at this point, I think no further public can be accepted.
Okay,
thank you very much.
If I may, through the chair, I can provide technical information with respect to the public hearing process and notification procedures. In addition to the information I have provided you earlier with respect to notifications, mailouts were provided or sent out on October the 30th, 19 days prior to the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And oh, sorry, one more thing. There's no sign requirements for public hearing proposals in electoral area A.
Thank you. Anything else on receipt?
Mr. Chair, if I could just say that a message was on my answering machine. I didn't talk to the person. There's no, new information. The only information was that she did not receive the mail out on time for the hearing. She did receive it, but the day after the hearing.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else on receipt? Seeing none, question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, item B, that report of the public hearing bylaw 408 and 409 and all related records be received. Director Wally,
So
second
moved.
by
Second.
Director Abram. Any further
Mr.
discussion?
Chairman, if I could, just to advise the board, we have received a submission following the close of the public hearing. We have not shared it with directors at all. And since it is outside the scope of the public hearing itself, I just want to inform the board that we have received that. We are not intending to either include it with the public record or provide that to the board unless there is a resolution from the board to do exactly that, which may then lead us back into another public hearing, should you go that route. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on B? Question?
I would just like to say that regardless of the notifications, we had no input except from the applicant, and I don't feel comfortable voting in favor of it because of that. I think we should go back to public hearing.
Joe?
If I might make a comment, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I disagree with Director Lee. Everybody had a proper opportunity and notification to put in their comments well ahead of time. I don't believe that someone didn't pick up their mail on time. That might be their statement. I don't believe it. I think that, in my opinion, we should go ahead with this. The ALC is going to have the final word on this. That's where it should be. We should advance it to them at the very least.
Thank you. Director Anderson.
Thank you. I'd like to know procedural clarification from staff about if there are directors that are uncomfortable advancing this at the time as per the staff recommendations in front of us. What other options do we have procedurally can we just defer this matter for some period of time? Can we refer it back to public hearing? I'm not interested in declining it. I'm interested in hearing from the ALC and or hearing again from public. What options do we have?
Well, staff?
I can respond if no one else is going to jump in. Procedurally, I think the board, if it decides it wishes to get more public input, it has the ability to take this back for a further public hearing. If the board is not going to be doing that, then the question would be, why would the board not give third reading? So I think those are kind of the choices in front of the board. And just so we're all clear, this is a rezoning, an OCP amendment. It does not have to be approved by the Agricultural Land Commission. That was a separate application that has been dealt with already. So this is purely for the board's consideration and decision.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Don't see any other discussion. I'll call question on item B. Anyone opposed?
Yes, I've got my hand up, Mr. Chair.
I had mine up too.
Go ahead, Director Abram.
Okay, just very quickly, this is Director Wally's area. He is well aware of the culture of the area and the feeling of the people of the area, and I think that it would be totally inappropriate for us as electoral area directors from other areas to say to him, we don't think you did a good enough job in your public hearing process and we want you to go back and do it again. I think that's totally inappropriate. I would totally oppose that. I think this public hearing was done according to Hoyle. It's not the process that we would like to have, but it's the process that we are under order to do. So, get over it.
Yep, Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. I took my hand down. Director Abram has made.
Thank you. Director Anderson, you have a question?
I do, just in reviewing the material, and I wonder if perhaps it is an older piece of information in the package and I didn't realize the date, but I remember reading just yesterday that the Agricultural Land Commission's approval was subject to some fencing, and there was some correspondence saying that had not yet gone in, and it was advisable that the applicant do that fencing as soon as possible. Is that an old piece of correspondence? Does staff know whether, because staff just mentioned that the ALC had indeed approve this now. So where am I getting mixed information?
Go to staff.
Thank you through the chair to Director Anderson. That is an older piece of correspondence. We have confirmed that the fencing has been placed on the property as requested.
So the ALC has made a final determination. There's a request for review. We have no idea how that would obviously turn out. Is that correct?
If I may, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, seeing no more, I'll call question on B. Anyone opposed?
Lee? I'm not really opposed to the.
You voted.
I'm the same as Director Anderson. I'm not opposed to supporting Director Wally. I just feel like we didn't get any input.
Point of order. Director Lee, you voted. You're opposed. Thank you. I don't see anybody else opposed. I'll call carried. Item C, move the bylaw 408 be give third reading. Area directors.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Second, yeah.
Yeah, second by Director Wally. Seeing none, I'll call question on C. Anyone opposed?
Lee?
I'll call carried. Item D, the bylaw 409 be third reading. Motion of Director Wally. Seconder.
Second.
Director Abrams.
Abrams, second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, anyone opposed?
Lee?
Cool. Call carried. And item E, the final adoption of bylaw 408-409 be withheld. Director Wally.
Second, Abrams.
Director Anderson, thank you. No further discussion. Area directors, anyone opposed?
Lee?
Thank you. Call carried. Number 4, bylaw 410, corporate office lease renewal. Motion received.
My receipt.
Director Lee, second by Director Adams. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add.
Do I have any questions, discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, moved by Director Adams, second by Director Evans. Any discussion? Seeing none, call carried. Under correspondence, we have 1 to 6.
Move 1 to 6.
Seconder.
Second.
Director Cornfield. Any discussion? Seeing none, anyone opposed?
Sorry, Chair, I raised my hand, but I just want to note that I am in conflict of interest for item number 2. I'm on the board of the Children's Health Foundation of Vancouver Island.
Thank you very much, Director Evans.
Thank you.
Sorry I didn't see your hand. Okay, we're moving on. Under T, move to closed session. The report from CEO be
Move to
received.
receive the CAO's report.
You second. Director Colburn. Any discussion, CEO?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair. No.
Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, moved by Director Colburn. Second by Director Evans. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to closed.
Just question, I read the closed session agenda previously, but it's currently not showing up on our certificate page.
We'll attend to that directly. But Mr. Chairman, I believe the closed session cannot occur until after the board has terminated the public meeting.
Kill.
Move termination.
Kill. Seconder.
Second.
Kill. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Anyone
just
opposed?
process. Do we have to leave this meeting and log in under a separate in-camera
Yeah.
I